Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Imagine an image just seared into our collective consciousness. The horror of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
Revelation 17 paints her so vividly, draped in purple and scarlet, shimmering with gold, jewels. She clutches this golden cup.
Right, but it's not full of anything good.
Exactly. It's overflowing with abominations and the impurities of her fornication. And then there's the name on her forehead.
Oh, yeah, that's chilling. Babylon the Great, mother of whores and of earth's abominations.
And if that wasn't enough, she's riding this terrifying beast, drunk. Not on wine, but on the blood of the saints.
It's an incredibly vivid, disturbing, and honestly, utterly captivating figure.
Definitely.
And for, what, over 2,000 years, this cryptic image has been a source of just endless fascination,
Yeah.
profound confusion, and frankly, a really powerful weapon in countless ideological battles.
And that's exactly our mission in this deep dive today. We want to unpack her complex identity. She's, a woman, a city, an empire, a symbol, all at once.
Yeah, complex is the word.
And we want to understand why she still resonates, why she provokes so many questions, even now.
So we'll be exploring Babylon through, well, multiple lenses. We're drawing from a stack of really incredible sources you've shared with us.
Right.
We've got a surprising historical perspective from Warren Wheatley,
Mm-hmm.
an incisive feminist interpretation from Monica Fladiak,
Yes.
a profound theological reading from an anonymous thesis.
Which is fascinating.
It really is, and a great analysis of her artistic and, well, propaganda use from Angel Garcia Arons.
So the goal here really is to see how Babylon acts as this kind of mirror, a distorted reflection maybe of the reader's world.
Exactly, a shifting archetype that reveals not just what is condemned, but, how and why we condemn it.
It's going to be quite the journey, I think.
Definitely.
So let's jump right in. Maybe the most basic question about Babylon.
Yeah.
Where is she? Her true address? Is it Rome? Jerusalem? Something else entirely?
Well, historically, the most common interpretation, the one most people probably know, places the Whore of Babylon squarely as Rome.
Okay.
And it makes a lot of sense contextually. Rome was the dominant imperial power back in the 1st century.
Right, the persecutors of the early Christians.
Exactly, known for its opulence, its power. And crucially, Revelation 17.9 explicitly mentions the beast riding on 7 hills.
Ah, the 7 hills. That's almost code for Rome, isn't it?
It's a very famous, pretty unmistakable allusion to Rome, yeah.
That Rome theory sounds so, neat on the surface.
Yeah.
But then Warren Wheatley, in his thesis, he just completely upends it.
He really does.
He argues that John of Patmos, who wrote Revelation, wasn't actually aiming his apocalyptic wrath outward at Rome, but inward towards Jerusalem. How does he even start to make that case?
What's really groundbreaking, I think, in Wheatley's argument is how he roots this idea in ancient Jewish prophetic tradition.
Okay, so going back further.
Yeah. Prophets like Isaiah, Jeremiah, and especially Ezekiel, think chapters 16 and 23, they frequently use the language of prostitution, of betrayal, to describe Jerusalem's unfaithfulness to its covenant. Idolatry.
Right, spiritual adultery is a metaphor.
Precisely. It was a powerful, established metaphor.
And there's a specific textual detail, too, isn't there, that Wheatley really focuses on?
Yes, exactly. Revelation 18.24, it states that in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints.
Okay.
So Wheatley points out, well, Rome didn't kill the Old Testament prophets.
Jerusalem did.
Jerusalem did. That one detail, it just shifts the entire landscape of interpretation.
Wow.
So if you step back, this reinterpretation changes Babylon from being this, distant pagan enemy into a really devastating critique of religious hypocrisy. It becomes an insider's rebuke, a critique of a city that knew God's truth, supposedly, but twisted it for power.
And that lines up with Jesus' own words, right? Lamenting over Jerusalem.
Uncannily, his lament that Jerusalem kills the prophets is a very direct echo.
It's a pretty radical rereading, though, for a text so many people feel they understand.
Oh, absolutely.
Which raises a key question. Why might this reading, even with textual support, have been kind of overshadowed by the safer narrative of Rome as Babylon?
Well, you touched on it, I think.
Is it just too uncomfortable?
It probably is. It forces a look at corrupted internal power, not just some external enemy. That's always much harder, much more uncomfortable.
Yeah, introspection versus pointing fingers.
Exactly. But whether we're talking Rome or Jerusalem, the image of Babylon isn't just about a place or an institution. It's also deeply tangled up with some really problematic gendered portrayals.
Right. Let's shift focus there to the beast rider's body itself.
Yes.
Because It's striking, isn't it, how Revelation 17's imagery is so undeniably deeply gendered.
Absolutely.
It condemns Babylon not just for corruption in general, but specifically for her body, her dress, her sexuality. It's very specific and often quite brutal kind of judgment.
And Monica Chladiak's feminist critique really digs into this. She asks the question, is the whore primarily a theological symbol, or is she also perhaps a kind of misogynistic scapegoat?
A scapegoat for what?
Well, her analysis highlights this disturbing paradox. Her ornate appearance, which symbolizes her seductive power.
Yeah, the purple, the scarlet, the gold.
Right. That very appearance becomes the reason for her annihilation. The judgment isn't just against a system, Chladiak argues, but against a woman's flesh lavishly adorned, publicly shamed, and violently destroyed.
And the language used is just brutal. Revelation 17:16. They will make her desolate, naked. They will devour her flesh and burn her up with fire.
Yeah, it's graphic.
Chladiak explains this as a ritualized stripping and destruction of the female body. It mirrors the grim fate of adulterous women in the ancient world.
Exactly. And who are the destroyers? It's the beast and the 10 kings she once rode. The very forces she empowered, they turn on her.
It's a chilling image of power turning on itself, or discarding its tool.
And this connects directly back to the Old Testament, to those metaphors of unfaithful women, like Ezekiel 23's Ohula and Oholibah.
Right, who also betrayed covenants and suffered violent ends.
So Babylon, in this light, becomes their sort of apocalyptic descendant. Chladiak suggests this embodies symbolic misogyny woven into Scripture, reflecting deeper anxieties about women's power, women's agency.
So her destruction isn't just theological. It's a deeply gendered act of symbolic control.
That's the argument.
But there's a complexity here too, isn't there? Because Babylon isn't just passive.
No, not at all.
The text says she rides the beast, she intoxicates nations, she reigns over kings, she has agency.
She absolutely does, which complicates things.
So how do we hold those two ideas together? Is she this sort of femme fatale who in some sense maybe earns her judgment through her actions? Or is she primarily a womanified metaphor, as Chladiak puts it, designed to embody the dangers of pleasure, freedom, and power from a, patriarchal viewpoint?
It's a really tough question, and maybe the answer isn't strictly one or the other. It's a potent tension within the text itself.
Yeah.
And this tension leads us perfectly into the next lens, looking at Babylon as the anti-bride. Okay, so not just a city or a gendered symbol, but a kind of dark mirror image.
Exactly, a theological opposite to the church itself, or rather, the ideal church.
This contrast is such a critical thread through Revelation, isn't it?
It really is.
On one hand, you have Babylon, the great whore, riding the beast, dripping with corrupted wealth and blood.
Yeah.
And then later in Revelation 21, you get the bride of the Lamb, the New Jerusalem.
The contrast couldn't be starker. Look at their attire, their actions.
Totally opposite. Babylon and all her finery and fornication, drunk on blood.
While the bride is clothed in pure white righteousness, adorned for union with Christ.
So the anonymous theological thesis, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, this one really focuses on that contrast.
It does. And what's fascinating is how it points out that Babylon's luxurious apparel actually mimics sacred garments.
Mimics? How so?
Well, it argues her clothes mimic the priestly garments of the Old Testament, and maybe ironically, the bridal garments of righteousness worn by the true bride.
Wow, so it's a deliberate counterfeit? That's the idea. And her golden cup of abominations, the thesis calls it a grotesque inversion of the Eucharistic cup.
An anti-communion.
Exactly. A symbol of corrupted worship, spiritual deception. She's painted as this kind of anti-church that seduces the world not with truth, but with spectacle, with luxury.
So it's not just good versus evil, but maybe true worship versus false worship.
Yeah.
Two competing visions of what ultimate reality, what God's kingdom looks like.
Precisely. Two competing eschatologies, as theologians would say. Babylon rules the present age through manipulation, luxury, violence,
right,
while the bride represents a coming kingdom of humility, justice, divine presence. Babylon is evil, the thesis argues, precisely because she masquerades as sacred.
That makes her deception even more profound.
It does, and it raises the question, what does her fall really signify, theologically?
Yeah, beyond just punishment.
The thesis argues her fall isn't just judgment, but a final unveiling of falseness, a divine exposure of what was always an illusion.
An illusion? How so?
Look at who weeps when she falls. The merchants, the kings. They don't weep because they loved her.
They weep because they lost their source of wealth.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Because she sustained their luxury and vice. Her beauty, her worship, it was all transactional. There was no real substance there. It's a kind of cosmic disillusionment.
And maybe the most provocative idea in that thesis, it suggests Babylon and the Bride aren't just institutions out there somewhere.
Right. It frames them as paths, invitations to identity.
Invitations?
Yeah. It even says, quote, every generation must choose between them. One offers the comfort of compromise, the other offers the narrow gate. That brings it right down to a personal level, doesn't it?
It really does. A profound personal challenge.
And zooming out slightly on that point, it implies Babylon isn't just some external enemy we fight against.
Or maybe something inside us.
Yes. The temptation within to cloak ambition in righteousness, to sell truth for status, and to trade communion for control. It's a potent warning against, internal corruption within religious or any power structures.
Which brings us kind of neatly to Babylon's journey beyond the biblical page. She doesn't just stay in Scripture, does she?
Not at all. She becomes this enduring artistic muse, but also a potent political and polemical symbol. Angel Garcia Arens documents this really well.
Her image gets wielded like a weapon. That's fascinating.
It really is. What's particularly striking is how her image was visually weaponized during the Reformation.
Against the Catholic Church.
Especially in Lutheran propaganda, yes.
Yeah.
Her beast, her cup, they were directly recontextualized to attack the Roman Catholic Church, that golden chalice she holds.
Yeah.
It was seen as a direct mockery of the Eucharist.
Wow. Is there a specific example of this?
Oh, perfect chilling one is Lucas Cranach the Elder's woodcut from 1522.
Okay.
It explicitly shows the whore, identified with the Pope. He's wearing the papal tiara, seated atop the beast, surrounded by cardinals.
So no subtlety there.
None whatsoever. This marked a real shift where, as the source says, the whore was no longer a mystery, but an accusation. Very direct. And yet, even in these attacks, her beauty is emphasized. She's still depicted as seductive, opulent, inviting.
Which creates a paradox, right?
Absolutely. It makes her both repulsive and attractive, which is ideal for propaganda. She embodies both the allure of heresy and the horror of its consequences.
And the symbolic power, it just keeps going, doesn't it? It endures today.
It absolutely does. She transcends the page, popping up in plays, sermons, films, novels.
She becomes this kind of visual archetype in modern media.
Exactly. And she's incredibly adaptable. Whatever empire, institution, or ideology needs to be cast as the enemy.
She can wear that mask.
She can. Whether it's Catholic Rome, consumer capitalism, or international finance, as Arens notes, she becomes the face of whatever we fear, whatever we want to destroy.
And maybe, sometimes, whatever we secretly desire.
That's the really unsettling part, isn't it? That hidden desire.
So as we kind of bring this deep dive toward a close, what we're seeing is that Babylon isn't just a character in an old book.
No, she's much more. A theological echo, a literary mirror, a living warning, even now.
Her image gets projected onto empires, churches, ideologies.
Always serving, it seems, to reveal what happens when power masquerades as holiness, when seduction wears the garments of salvation. Her fall is always portrayed as this kind of divine unveiling.
And each of these lenses we've looked through, they add something vital, don't they?
They really do. Wheatley's bold idea about Jerusalem gives us that stunning internal rebuke.
Right, the enemy within.
Leidich's feminist analysis forces us to grapple with how the symbol itself is tangled up in, patriarchal assumptions and the ritual destruction of female-coded power.
Yeah, that was powerful.
The anonymous thesis, meanwhile, shows Babylon as that satanic parody of communion, the false church offering illusion.
The anti-bride.
Exactly. And Garcia Arens' cultural history, it shows how easily she becomes a weapon, a propaganda tool to demonize enemies.
While maybe hiding our own complicity sometimes.
That's the uncomfortable truth it reveals.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? For us? If there's one, core truth that seems to rise from her ashes.
What would it be?
It seems to be this. Babylon is always closer than we think.
Not just out there.
No. She's not just an external enemy. She is potentially the system we tolerate, the empire we benefit from, the theology we distort for control.
Why does she survive?
Well, the sources suggest she survives because she's profitable, and she thrives because she's disguised. Often disguised as something good.
So how do we apply this ancient vision today? Maybe Revelation isn't just about predicting the future.
Maybe it's meant to be read in the mirror.
That's a powerful thought, not to scare us into some rigid orthodoxy, perhaps, but to awaken us.
Awaken us to what?
To the masks we wear, maybe? The systems we uphold, perhaps unconsciously? It feels like a warning against building kingdoms, even in God's name, that actually reflect our own ambition, not the divine spirit.
And yet her fall, Babylon's fall, it's never the final word in Revelation, is it?
No, crucially it's not. When Babylon burns, the bride appears.
When falsehood is exposed.
Truth can finally be seen. There's hope after the judgment.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with. Babylon has fallen. The text proclaims it.
But maybe only if we let her fall. Within ourselves, within our systems.
That's a powerful challenge.